Right. So here we are, 7 o'clock. Carl, thank you very much for taking the time to joining us here. I hope you're feeling better. Can you breathe? I was expecting you with a mask and
No, no, that's
no,
tomorrow. Back to work tomorrow.
no, I mean mask because you're suffering from the breathing. Yeah, but you're okay. You seem to be all right.
Yeah.
So tell us, well, let's start from the scratch as we do with everybody. I mean, I'm no interviewer, but hey, many things I didn't do before this. So now I'm talking to cameras. I'm teaching online. Lots of things we had to learn on the spot, on the job, as they say. Tell us about your background, because I told everybody on my little dramatic, advert there: paramedic, Krav instructor, Corona survivor. I'm getting better at this. I should get a job at CNN one of these days.
Yeah. So background.
Take us from there.
In search and rescue in the late 90s. So that's where I started my medical training. That progressed on. Started in pre-hospital care in about 2006.
Right.
And then started in London ambulance about 3.5 years ago. I've been working.
Wow.
And I work in South London in at Deptford is my home station, but I cover everywhere. Whitechapel, Bow, across to sort of Battersea, Wimbledon.
See, I was just about to say that you sound like my brother. He just joined us now, by the way. So you're the guy that whenever we need someone to cover shift, you go and cover the shift. You're doing what's it called? What's the name of that?
The release.
The relief, yes, exactly. That's the name of it.
So I have got a line, but we just end up going all over the place.
Because many times you will start a shift in Heathrow Airport and finish somewhere in Kent almost. It was like, how did you end up there? Well, we got a call and another call and another call, and all of a sudden, you're miles away from home. You also have that kind of stuff when you're...
Yeah, so we work, obviously we work a lot of time with the police, and they only work in one borough. So when we tell them where we've just come from, they're like, what the hell was you doing over there? We're like, well,
yeah.
They're very surprised that we don't just sort of get contained in one area.
So that was. I mean, I was involved with this kind of stuff and helping people search and rescue and putting band-aids on people, and from band-aids to heart to CPRs and stuff like that. So and then so that's when you actually going through, or you finished, you concluded the whole paramedic degree, which is probably people who don't know paramedic degrees. How long is that?
Moment, because all the guys that was in the classroom as tutors are out on the road as road staff. So yeah, so the actual courses, everything is postponed in LAS at the moment. There is the only people we're training are the London Fire Brigade that have come on board with us to work alongside the LAS members of staff on a vehicle so that we can basically put more vehicles out on the road.
Wow.
Yeah, so that they come along. Obviously, they've all got some degree of medical training anyway, as like trauma training as fire fighters. But yeah, so they've come on board and done familiarisation training and stuff. So the only people that have had any training for the last couple of months was the firefighters.
Wow. So people have actually completed the degrees and they had like what, 3 months, 6 months to go. Getting the experience, hands-on experience now with the fire. That would be a traumatizing end of a degree, wouldn't it?
There's some people, I mean, like they've done with student nurses, where if you are literally, like a few weeks away from getting the handshake, they've just said, you know what, we just need you out on the road, so we're actually going to give you the handshake a little bit early, and off you go. So
wow, congratulations, you passed. Off you go. If you survive, you come back like in the war, isn't it? You left as a soldier, come back as a sergeant, then you come back, and if you come back, you become a lieutenant.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic, man, fantastic. So I was talking to Joel earlier, and the fact that the big hospital that was built. I mean, I'm going to talk about stuff that I hope you can discuss it, because if you cannot discuss it, let me know. Yeah. We can always go the way of I cannot confirm either deny. What's happening? Because today, and my wife was telling me that every day she comes with the body count, 500, 600, 900 one stage. Today is like 400 and something.
Yeah.
But is this not very accurate, isn't it? Because it's how they account for people dying at the hospital, or people who as a general.
So the numbers that are given are hospital-related deaths.
Ah,
That doesn't really count. Have you heard of the ONS figures?
no.
The ONS figures is the Office for National Statistics, and they collate people that have died in care homes, people that have died in the community. So that's why their numbers generally lag quite a bit behind, because basically the hospitals just all put in their numbers and say, this is how many people died today. And that's the numbers that the government put through. But the Office of National Statistics actually look at every death that's related to COVID, which is why they are normally several weeks behind the actual figures.
But how do you, let me put it this way, as a joke, in Brazil, people are getting shot in the back and the doctors say, yeah, he died from corona. You know what I mean? The guy took 2 bullets in the back and some kind of a crime-related scenario. But, there's a lot of politics involved, and this party wants to look great, the other one looks to look bad, and, we need to get reelected. Would you think this kind of stuff works here? Because my question is now is that, what is the number of people that last year died at the same time of the year now, during this same period of between February and March and so on, March and April? What is the regular, because we don't know that. We don't keep track of this kind of stuff. This sounds like the knife crime in the UK. What we see in the news is not what actually shows up on statistics a year later. You know what I mean? So it's how does that work?
Yeah.
How does that relate?
So yeah, if a death is if a person dies and they have COVID, it's a COVID-related death. So if you're stood at the top of the stairs and you've got coronavirus and you cough really hard and fall down the stairs, then you died of coronavirus.
Because if I'm 99 years old, I've got all sorts of possible diseases known to mankind, and all of a sudden I catch a cold and I die from that. So what is the cause of death? Cold?
It's COVID. Yeah, because so you might be in your last week of you might be a palliative patient who's had cancer and you get COVID. So it would be a COVID-related death. It wouldn't necessarily, you didn't die of coronavirus, but it's a COVID-related death.
So if we, from my point of view, from how can I put it this way, trying to see it from a different perspective. If you had to filter this later, let's give it 20 years time, people are going to look back and go, actually half of the people died from that, the other half died from something else. That would probably will happen in the future, isn't it?
I would imagine, yeah, that later on things could potentially be separated out, and we would look to see maybe how different things were contributed towards the death. I mean, the problem is at the moment is that pretty much nobody has a post-mortem. If you die, you don't do a post-mortem at the moment. So the problem will be is backtracking to see, how did that person die? If it's a COVID-related death, then that's it. That nobody will go back and look any further than that. Certainly not at the moment, anyway.
And the other thing is, looking at them, the more I look at the statistics, the crazier you become, because there's a lot of information going on there. Different newspapers will give different points of view and so on. But when you're talking about the average age, of course, we had the young kids, children dying from this thing. But it seems to be that anyone over 40, 45, if you have any problems, that might bring you to the same lot. Is that something we can say? For example, in Italy, I'm not sure how many, if there's anyone older than 50 years old in Italy on that part, especially north of Italy, left, because as far as I can see, this thing cut a lot of lives of the elderly people there. Is that the same thing happening here?
I think there's definitely there is definitely a pattern there where people over 40 plus seem to be potentially not more at risk, but we seem to come across more patients.
Right.
But then there is so many other what are called comorbidities, so other problems that people have that probably start developing at about that age.
Right.
Diabetes, obesity, heart problems, things like that probably somebody at a lower age might not have those symptoms, or certainly not to the point where they've been detected yet. Someone can live with diabetes for quite some time.
Because at the same time, we see younger people dying from this thing. We also see people with 90 years old recovering from it and going home. And you think, whoa, hold on a second. What is that? Well, this guy was a very, physically fit and, it's just the age. The case the body was okay. Or I don't know if this virus are different strengths, if you like it. There's the weaker one, the more stronger, the powerful one. Is that such a thing? Is there some kind of
So not so much so there's a thing called a viral load, which is the amount of the virus that you get. So I might be around somebody for 5 minutes and get a very small amount of it, and I might be minorly unwell with it. And yet the same person could be around somebody for a long time and take in a greater dose of the virus, and then potentially it becomes fatal to them. All the things at the moment that they are still trying to actually work out, you know, what does make that effect. Did that person have some unknown underlying condition, or is it the fact, you know, that you just had so much of the virus on you that it just completely overwhelms your system?
I know, because I find amazing this, because I mean, you have to work. My brother works with the same. We have Dr. Karina here. We have Felipa also involved up to the neck in this kind of stuff. And the question is, how did the COVID change your work day dynamic? Because I guess in the past you used to show up on a accident scene, gloves on, that's it. Let's pick this guy up from the floor, patch him up, take him to the hospital. Now you need to approach the guy with a shield and a sword and a mask and all sorts of other devices, isn't it?
Yeah. So basically the ruling is that everybody now is treated as that they've got coronavirus. We wouldn't approach anybody without a face mask on,
Wow. 2
gloves on each hand, and at least an apron, a disposable apron as a minimum. If we can, we try to avoid going in the person's property. We try to get the rest of the family out of the way if we can, so that if they're all breathing in, breathing out coronavirus, that we don't sit in a room with 6 or 7 relatives all breathing it all over us.
Wow.
If we can, we try to leave as much equipment outside as possible, so that we don't need to keep disinfecting and disposing of stuff that that we wouldn't normally have to do. It was a case where we would try to get a member of the family to take in a thermometer and take the in-ear temperature and see if the person had a fever and things like that.
Would you say you can keep the thermometer after that? We don't need it back. Just keep it in. You better leave it there. Yeah.
It's changed a lot.
Wow.
And as well, if you think about, there's some jobs we go to, which is the run of the mill. Someone's had diarrhea for 5 days and a bit of a cough, and you sort of think, well, hang on, why is a 999 ambulance been sent to you? And then there's the other jobs you get to where there really is a degree of urgency to get in and start treating the person. And sometimes it is quite hard to decide, well, before I go in, I'm going to stop, I'm going to put on this suit, I'm going to put on this mask. And, that's a couple of minutes it's going to take before we even do the property and start doing, the stuff that is very urgent, which can be hard.
You guys are thinking now like the armed response units now, before they show up there with a gentleman with a gun. And then you have, ask yourself 1,000 questions. Is it a big gun, small gun, machine gun?
Yeah.
Do we go with the bullet in the chamber? Do I go and talk to the guy? That's pretty much more the same approach of, I guess, the armed response units there. Man,
yeah. We do. Like I say, now we wouldn't just, step in and say, well, sometimes if you get caught up in a stabbing and before you realise it, you're sort of dealing with it, and then you think, I haven't put my vest on. At the next opportunity I'll quickly go and put my vest on. Right. But with this now, you consciously do this before you step out the back of the truck, because once you're there, it's too late then. And it's not just for yourself; it's for any, with them picking it up, giving it to the next person and the next person and the next person. So it's not just to protect us, but we go to somebody, an 85-year-old lady who's been deliberately making sure she's been stuck in a house. She's seen nobody apart from somebody who drops her shopping off at her front door. And then we go and see her, and then we give the virus,
Wow. Do you remember that movie Mad Max, when he's walking around in the Thunderdome and everybody's in this post-apocalyptic scenario where the guy is selling water, fresh water from the hills, and then he comes with a counter, the Geiger counter, and goes, the radiation levels was like off the chart. They go, yeah, really fresh, but thank you very much. So we are getting to that stage now where, I had the guy delivering the food here, and as you said, he dropped the bags, knocked on the door, and he took off and he ran back to his van. So as soon as I opened the door, he gave me the wave and he left. So it was the weirdest feeling ever. I was like, man, what's going on here?
Yeah. But, like now, like not having to sign for your own parcels.
Yeah, exactly.
They'd start through the door and they'd say sorry, and like within 2 seconds they've gone. But now,
Already gone. Yes.
yeah,
And how long would this thing last? I mean, you were talking about this the other day, that it can last on a cardboard box for X amount of time in a leather surface. So now they have to try all this and find out how long will this thing last in different environments, especially the cars. You guys clean yourselves up, spray one another, but then you have the dashboard of your van, and also the handlebar and things like that.
yeah.
The door handles.
And you're always reliant on the person that used that vehicle before you as well. Because I can give it a very thorough clean when I get off the truck, but that doesn't mean to say that the person that has just finished their shift, who's, you know, we're an hour late off, so let's just quickly grab our stuff and get out the door. Or did they stop and wipe everything down and whatever themselves? And
because this is another issue, because you are waiting for the ambulance to arrive. If you guys finish the job on time and they manage to get back to the station, you take over. But then might be the case you have a call straight away.
Yeah.
You don't have the time to do the whole.
No, you very quick check, you know, the legal stuff, you know, like the lights and, you know, and a quick look at that. So if we had a not very urgent call, we would probably take a little bit longer than, you know, than the time allowed. But if it's something comes down and it's an urgent job, then quite often, as you know, as long as the lights work and the tires are around,
and there's fuel in the tank. Pretty good. Yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah, and then we'll worry about all that in a minute. But
man, it's great.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions here. So Filippo was saying that there's also something called sepsis, which is each person responds to the virus and the bacteria in a different way, of course. So there is also that. Not everybody is the same. It's not the same medication, not the same symptoms, not the same approach to everybody. It's very individual. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and Edward is asking, did you come across people who sadly passed in their houses, like it happened quite a bit in Italy? Because in Italy, I guess, was a of atomic bomb, pretty much, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we've also had a significant increase in the amount of cardiac arrests that we've attended, almost double the amount of cardiac arrests. And I don't know what that is. Is that because people are at home and somebody that may, you know, die quietly and not be found until the family come home at tea time? There's people that are finding them that wouldn't normally be at home because they'd be at work and school, you know. I don't know, but yeah, about double the.
I guess that the disease was one thing, but the fact that people are locked up at home for so long and have to change, and the fact that they're thinking about jobs and loss of income and future and all the uncertainty, that put a lot of pressure in some people there. Also, it was you, or I think it was my brother who mentioned about the case of suicide. People are topping themselves up quite a level now. Also,
yeah.
Which is also sad, isn't it?
Yeah, domestic abuse as well.
Wow.
People where they would normally, you know, the partner would be at the pub and have a few beers, and you know, now he's having a few beers or she's having a few beers at home, and yeah, so and there's nowhere to go, nobody can escape.
Yeah. And then you add a couple of kids plus a dog, and then that's it.
Yeah, and not money. The person's self-employed, hasn't got any income. The stress levels have gone through the roof.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you guys, because I was talking to Paul in the US, Paul Lendersmith, and also a paramedic. They said they're having issues. The paramedics are not going home wearing uniforms because they had people pulling guns at them at petrol stations, pointing guns and shooting at paramedics, complaining that, like, you know, you're the guys spreading the disease around, all this kind of stuff. I was like, what? Are you crazy? Yes, but people are just insane. Do you guys have any issues here when you go and you know?
So we're not allowed to wear uniform outside of work.
You're not allowed
to do anything with the crest or the NHS logo on our shirt. So if we wear our uniform, we have to have some kind of, you know, jacket or whatever over the top, or remove your shirt. You can wear your green trousers, but yeah, you're not.
This is post-corona or before? It was always part of the.
Before, yeah. But because it was identified as a potential target to.
Right, I guess this has to do with that soldier that was killed a few years back, and when he was walking around uniform and things like that, I guess, yeah? Oh, yeah. Flipper said that in London there are people being robbed with the NHS cards, I guess, that people think they can have access to hospitals and take drugs and stuff like that. Okay.
If people being spat at and, you know, shouted at.
I wouldn't last a day in a job like a paramedic, because I would be punching people and kicking them in the head in the first second.
Yeah,
So
I think with the, I mean, some of the things. Don't get me wrong. I'm very humble for what people do for the NHS. You know, the being able to go to a shop and not have to queue, things like that. But I suppose there's some people that look at the NHS workers going straight to the front of the queue and think, why? You know, you've got off. Why can't you queue with the, you know? And I see both sides, because I think sometimes if I'm on shift and I go to queue for a coffee, chances are that unless I've been quite clever, chances are I'm going to get a job before I get to the front of the queue and get the coffee.
so as well, yeah, there's
Yeah.
no chance.
Yeah.
Right.
Normally, hopefully not after I've paid for it, but at least you. But yeah, I think yeah, I can imagine why people would, you know, sort of get a bit of the ump about, you know, everyone thinking that the NHS is, you know, so fantastic, and other people thinking, well, I don't. Is
Wow. Well, there's another question for you here.
Mhm.
Assuming it will eventually, assuming I will eventually get it, what can I do to minimize the chance of surviving it with the least damage? So besides of doing Krav Maga, obviously. So he's joking about it. It's Maxim. You know Maxim.
Yeah.
So what is the best thing? I mean, you had, let's get to that stage now here. You one day felt that something was not right. You went
Yeah.
home. What is actually the symptoms? How do you come down with this thing?
So for me, I'd had a bit of a tickly cough for a little while. In fact, since probably just after Christmas, I'd had this sort of little cough every now and again. And then it was on a Wednesday. So the last shift I'd done, I was on the Saturday and the Sunday, the one with Ricardo on the truck.
Yeah.
And then on the Wednesday, I just noticed that I was just constantly coughing, but not bringing anything up. And then the Wednesday evening, I just didn't feel very well. And I was meant to do a shift then the next day back on the critical transfer truck. And I woke up probably about 3 times throughout the night, and I took my temperature. My temperature was sort of just about 38 degrees, so not massively high, but it was technically a fever. And then about 6 in the morning, when I rung in work and said, look, there's no way I'm going to be coming in today, I couldn't open my eyes. If I did and I tried to look at something, it just really hurt. It wasn't light, it was just trying to use my eyes.
Wow.
Just the most horrendous headache, really, really horrendous headache. And that's pretty much where it started off from. And then I looked at my oxygen saturations with the little finger probe, and I noticed that my oxygen saturations were significantly lower than where they should be. My respiratory rate was starting to come up a little bit, and I just hurt everywhere. Every single joint and every single bone, literally just, it was, if you've ever had the flu, the proper flu, it was like the flu, but much worse.
Wow.
I could talk, but I was so tired that literally maybe 3 or 4 or 5 words, and I couldn't bother to say anymore. So yeah, I was so exhausted.
And that lasted for how long?
That went on for about 6 days.
Wow.
And days 6 to 12 are the very key dates, because it's at that point you tend to do one of 2 things. One is start to improve, or the other is you now become seriously unwell to the point where you probably need to go to hospital to have at least some treatment, if not a stay in hospital. I was lucky, in all fairness. By day 6, my symptoms had plateaued, and then about another 2 or 3 days, they started to improve. I mean, this will be 3 weeks this Wednesday, and I go back to work on Monday. I haven't been back to work since. There was no way that I would have.
One question divided in 2. I mean, when people sit at home with the same symptoms you had, I mean, I'm having this cough, I'm feeling like this, I sit at home, let's have some garlic, the usual, put my crystal under my pillow, and all that stuff that people will go through thinking it will solve it. But then I get to the stage where, look, I cannot breathe. I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, out of breath, breathing like, very hard and coughing. That's when it's kind of a hard to call you guys, because now you are, I mean, you as the person suffering from this, you're what you just mentioned. It's been 12 days now. I can go two different ways. I can go left and feel better, don't need to call you, or I can really go right. And so if I have to go in the hospital, you guys stick a tube down my throat there, I have to be intubated for that. So what is the percentage of people who come out of that, saying, hey, thank you very much, I'm Boris Johnson, or hey, thank you very much, you're not a number on the statistics now?
So some people, so like me, I managed to, I was doing lots of I'd looked at, because I was giving advice to people, so I'd looked at a lot of breathing exercises to help to open the airways, to try to prevent as much as I could. I was proning, so I was laying on, with a pillow on my chest, and then I was laying face down to help you have more space at the back of your lungs than you do at the front of your lungs. So by laying on your chest, it allows the airways at the back of your lungs to clear with any sort of fluid, and allow good oxygen transfer. So I was doing what I could, sort of in a preventative kind of way, as much as I could, anyway. Wow. But yeah, really, I mean, apart from just, obviously eating well, making sure you take in plenty of fluids, there isn't really a lot else you can do, other than, once you think, do you know what, I'm starting to feel quite poorly, is to call the 111 line and take their advice. And they're quite good at the script that they will go through with you. And if they think that you need an ambulance, they will send us to come and check you out. We're quite happy to turn up and say, do you know what, at the moment, you can probably stay at home. Right. But should A, B, C, etc., you need to ring back, and don't delay with that, because you are now in this, swing period between going one way.
Any direction, left or right.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. The question here was, do you feel less anxious now that you had it, as in you might not get it again, or get it so strong? Because we don't know, again, if this thing is, once you contract it, you're going to get a stump in your forehead to say, yep, I'm survived. Yeah. I'm okay with that. So there's no such a thing, because you can contract this again. Is that right?
So knows at the moment.
That's the best part of the science. It's a question of depends, as Maxine's going to laugh now and says, see, Maxine, it's not even Krav Maga that keeps talking about this, a matter of depends. Even the science these days are talking about that.
So you can, so the problem is that some people show pretty much no symptoms. So they might have a bit of a cough and feel a little bit tired, but they never got a fever, they never got the massive headaches or the bone ache or anything like that. And then they have a test and they say, oh, do you know what? When you was coughing that little bit the other week, that was probably the virus.
Right.
Other people are very unwell with it, but they don't know if when they test you again, if it's just the remnants of the first time you had it. So how long is that first bit of virus still detectable? I told you the other day that we was doing the research for Public Health England. Was it you?
You mentioned.
Yeah. So Public Health England at the moment, nobody really knows anything about the condition. We have an idea that we know it's a coronavirus, we know it's a COVID type disease. So we have an idea of what we would expect to happen, but we don't know exactly what this particular strain of the condition would do. Wow. I've had some follow-up treatment. So I was contacted by Public Health England. I believe they said that initially there was 150 households that were being contacted. So we had to do a nose and a mouth swab and send that off for them to look at the loading. So how much of the virus is in me at this point, which they class as day one. It was probably a week and a half after I had actually took my test on the Thursday, and it was positive straight away. So I knew right from the beginning I had it.
It wasn't the case, come back in 3 days to get the result. It was like, yep, you sir, step aside, let's talk, huh?
Yeah. Luckily, because my wife is she works in a doctor's surgery as an advanced practitioner. And so she very quickly rung her work and said, "Can we get a test?" And so I got tested literally within about 3 hours of the place open.
Wow, that was a good one then.
Yeah. So this test now, 7 days. So we've just done another test, which is again just the nasal swab, and that's been sent off. And then we've had to do a diary over 14 days of what symptoms we've had. So yes, no to cold, sore throat is one they ask for, fatigue, shortness of breath, and then underneath it says any other symptoms particular to you. And one of the symptoms that was particular to me is from my elbows going up my triceps, and then literally all the trunk of my back. It felt like I had goose pimples the whole time. So material touching against me felt hypersensitive.
Wow.
When I explained this to the woman, she said, "I've heard this from several people that again."
So these are also the cause effect we are trying to gather.
Anecdotally, people are now coming up with their own symptoms, and now that are starting to collate the information, they're actually saying, "You know what? You're not the first person that's had this. It's not something we was aware of, but actually, there's quite a few people that have come up with it."
It was something to do with the smell and taste also. I think they gathered.
So I lost my sense of smell or taste, but my wife did. Luckily, I passed it on to my wife, being the sharing, caring husband that I am.
As you do, yeah.
And so within, I think I was on about day 4 or 5, and then she come down with it. And she's had.
What is the period where you becomes this contagious creature that walk around spreading the virus to everybody? Is there an incubation period and eventually a maturation and a period where like this thing comes out?
The magic Krav Maga answer again of
it all depends.
Yeah, basically.
Wow.
So nobody really knows. Some people have said it's from sort of 5 days, and others have said it's up to 20 days. The ruling for me at work is I'm not allowed to return to work within 48 hours of having a fever, because after that point I won't be shedding the virus anymore. The downside to that is that some people never have a fever. So at what point do they stop shedding? So again, there's so many people that are all giving advice that you read one article and then you read another article.
Yeah. This is why I stopped reading everything. It's just wait until someone knocks on the door and says, "Yes, the war is over. You can come out again. Let's play." Because the more you look into this thing, the more confusing it becomes. And then you look at newspapers from Russia or the RT News, and you look at the Jerusalem Post and in Brazil and here, they all have conflicting information. So now we're talking about China that have 30 different strains of this virus. 30. I mean, you're kidding me. And how they managed to survive this there. They are reopening businesses. They are putting people out on the street again. So in other words, the fear that we are having here is that we're going to send people out on the street. For example, Italy on the 4th of May now, they're going to allow businesses to start slowly opening again and trying to get back people on the street. But the problem is are we going to have a second wave of that? But based on the Chinese, no, because they are there. They're not or they are not telling us exactly what you're supposed to be, or they know something that we don't know. Now the conspiracy theory, lights up, and we can take it from here to any other kind of discussion.
I don't think at the moment we've obviously, people have asked questions, etc. And no one really seems to know what's to happen. Will lockdowns sort of start being phased off? And will we see, people getting coronavirus like they would get the flu in the winter? But it's at a level where it's not going to go away. It's here now. Whatever happens, coronavirus stays. We don't get rid of it until we can find a vaccine and everybody has the vaccine, so nobody can catch it. People are going to get it. The disease is not just going to drop off and go. Yeah,
but everywhere that I've seen, Israelis, the Americans here in Britain and all the countries, they are looking for this vaccine. And they say, look, we're going to do this in record time. Never has been done before. We can do this in 1.5 years. And everyone was like, what? A year and a half? I said, yes, normally it takes about 2 years to 5 years to develop a vaccine. So, but if you're going to be sitting at home for 5 years, I don't think I'm going to have enough curriculum to teach you guys for 5 years. I might have to start doing other stuff. Quick one here. Felipe said that she works with people that lost the sense of smell so bad that the guy nearly burned his hand cooking some sausages there. He couldn't smell it. So, and he's back at work and still can smell a thing. I mean, this
Yeah.
this stuff is gonna pass, or this is gonna stay like, okay, from now onwards, you don't smell anything, you don't taste anything. Congratulations, huh?
Yes. So my wife was reading an article yesterday, and she said that there's a person that's 35 days after they've, initially started having symptoms, and yeah, they can't smell anything, they can't really taste very much. So it's just that there isn't like I suppose there is a pattern that the majority of people fit,
right,
and the atypical people that fit outside of that. But there seems to be a lot of atypical people that fit outside of the usual sort of thing. Yeah, so some people, well over a month, and they're still, and this woman also still was getting breathless and things like that as well.
Wow.
So she could do very, very little. She could move slowly, etc. But as soon as she'd done any kind of physical exertion, she just immediately comes out of breath, and that's over a month afterwards.
And she's okay now.
X-ray, her chest is fine, etc. It's just the remnants of.
And the wife is fine now. She's out of the worst part of this.
Just today started to be able to taste again.
Wow.
Yeah, she's just about starting to taste.
It's crazy. Question was, how can you tell if you had the virus and you recovered from it? Question number one. If you don't have any symptoms of the virus, is it deadly as for people who have the symptoms? If you don't have any symptoms of the virus, it is as deadly as for people who have the symptoms. I'm not sure if it makes that sense, but. So,
if you didn't get any symptoms, you wouldn't know if you've had it ever, apart from having. So there's two ways that we would test to see if you have coronavirus. One is the virus actively living inside you,
right?
And actively multiplying inside your body.
Yeah.
And the other is we look for an antibody. So every time something comes into your body that shouldn't be there, your body recognizes it and basically builds a defense system. It's like the body's 360. So it will find a way that the next time that thing comes into the body, it's ready to attack it.
Yeah.
So the other way is that we will look to see, have you built the antibodies for coronavirus? Because if you've built the antibodies, then you must have been exposed to the virus at some point. The problem is we don't know how long it takes for the antibodies to develop to a level where you're immune. So if I've got it again now, have I built up enough antibodies to protect myself from it?
Right.
Or will I just get it again, but not as much? Or will I get it again, but this time, really serious? And again, at the minute, from the stuff that I've read, nobody is quite sure yet exactly.
Because I guess you just answered Thibaut's question, which was like, will the vaccine work? Because he had the flu vaccine in the past, and then he got the flu anyway. So it feels like even though you had the thing to prevent you from contracting this thing, all of a sudden you ended up suffering more and more from that.
Yeah. So with flu vaccines, normally what happens is, so obviously the different seasons around the world. For instance, people that get flu in Australia, like we will look to see what kinds of flu virus are very prevalent. So we will then aim our vaccines against the viruses that we know are probably coming our way over that space of time. The problem is that isn't necessarily always right. They may change, they may mutate slightly, they may have missed one. So although the vaccine gives a good level of protection generally, there's no guarantee that it's going to be 100% against. And so also you can get, so there's different kinds of flu vaccines. So you get a quad and a tri. So one will protect you against maybe 3 strains. Another one will protect you against 4 strains. But one is offered to some people. Another is offered to a different, maybe the over 75s get a particular one. So you might have just been unlucky to get the one that missed the type of virus that you got. Whereas coronavirus hopefully is aimed at, as long as it doesn't mutate and turn into being coronavirus A, coronavirus B, coronavirus C.
Right.
The virus, this vaccine should be able to combat the particular virus it's aimed at.
That's phenomenal. The question that Matt is asking is, what do you think of going out for a workout or a run? I mean, with the weather as it is, people are just ignoring it, because I went out for a little cycle around the block here with my kid, because we've been sitting in the house for more than a week now. So I said, let's go for a little quicker. But I was surprised, because everybody's there with kids and people are walking dogs and doing all sorts of things, at least here in the center of the universe where I live, which is Harlow.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. Next week is going to be raining, so I'm sure everybody will be indoors. So how does that work? Do people get exposed by just literally walking past one another?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they say, you know, you shouldn't be no closer than 2 meters to somebody. But I mean, if you've walked behind somebody smoking a cigarette in the park, how far behind that person can you smell that cigarette? Yeah. So it's no different to if they've sneezed and not put their hand over their face or whatever. That cloud, you can't see it. But if you think about how far away you could smell a cigarette, imagine that that's in the air being carried towards you. It's the same.
The other thing that I noticed, all the parks around here, they've closed it. They put, like, literally had to go and tape the machine, the exercise machines, to avoid people going and exercising on a sunny day. Because if I go and I'm contagious, I will leave my stuff, my sweat or whatever that is, and then someone else comes after that and use the same machine. There's no one in the park, but the thing is contaminated, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess that's hard for you to understand that, why they cannot do it.
And I don't suppose people turn up with a pack of you know, special wipes to clean all the.
Nah.
They start touching it. So yeah, I mean, it's one doing and closing a gate and, you know, things like that. You know, has the postman undone your gate in the morning? And you know, what was the last thing he touched? It's
that's
you
another.
know, somebody's doorbell. I don't know if you've noticed, quite often now, delivery people just bang on your front door because they don't push the doorbell, because that's the bit everybody else has touched. So they'll now just bang on the glass, which you know, at first I was thinking, I wonder why doorbell's working. And then when I thought, oh, actually, no, that's obviously why they're doing it, because they touched the bit everybody's touched.
The other thing, the cloth, the simple mask, the one with the little elastic there. Right in the beginning, I bought a box of that stuff and gloves and things like that, because the idea was that if people had to come to the classes when the were still operating, I will put everyone, you know, there you go, there's your mask, there's your pair of gloves. It looks like one of those parties that people used to go every now and then, but never mind. But then eventually, of course, everything just, you know, closed, shut down, and we couldn't use it anymore. But would that actually help? Would it make any difference then?
So
because the masks are different. You have the ones with the filters, like my brother wears this different one, and you know, it's the proper mask, if you like. But then you have the disposable ones. Are any good?
So yeah, I mean, anything that's potentially going to filter out, probably. So some masks are obviously designed to stop stuff coming out, and some masks are designed to stop stuff being breathed in.
Right.
But anything that is a
barrier, if you like.
Yeah, barrier. Yeah, between you is gonna. It's not going to stop it, but it's going to reduce the potential of you getting stuff on. If someone sneezed next to you in your, you know, when you're stood in the local Tesco's, if you've got something over your face, then the likelihood of it going into your mouth is obviously going to be lower than if you're chatting on the phone, you know, with no protection.
I was surprised that even the United States Army or Navy were talking about everybody should cover with a, you know, with a cloth or with a T-shirt or something like that. I mean, for those guys to let the troops, the soldiers, you know, the foot soldiers, to wrap yourself, you know, a T-shirt around your face and off you go, son. So, you know, I find it very interesting, the different levels of.
Yeah. I mean, we was told at the beginning, obviously, that, you know, it makes no difference, you shouldn't be doing this. And then they said, oh, we need to protect the supplies of masks for the NHS. Is that why we were saying to people that it makes no difference to you? Because it obviously does, otherwise we wouldn't be wearing them. But so, yeah.
It's the panic buying. People just go online and buy on Amazon like 20 boxes of that and then sit at home like the toilet paper. But anyway, and apparently during the Spanish flu, which had nothing to do with Spain, by the way, people used to buy the naphthalene, the little balls, because they thought it was coming from some insect or whatever there was in those little balls. The naphtha will repel. So they used to go and buy, you know, they bought the whole lot of it. And they were talking about what, more than 100 years ago. So I guess we're in the same. We have this psychology of something's going to happen. I need to go and buy something. And it was the weapon of choice, if you like it.
It does give you it does give you upset stomach. That is one, and even on that the Public Health England thing, one of the things is, do you have diarrhea? It does cause.
No, but if you buy 200 rolls of toilet paper, you have diarrhea to the point you're going to use half of that, you're going to be dead, wouldn't you? Something else is going to give up before the virus.
Yeah, a little bit dehydrated if you need to use that much toilet.
So Tim is asking, so does the washing hands with soap kills it, or is just a way of getting the people that, you know, once you leave the toilet, wash your hands?
So, you know, hand washing is, I would say, hand washing is the most important thing in infection prevention and control. You know, if you don't wash your hands and you touch something, you will immediately move that to somewhere else. And then anybody that touches it will then pick that up, and then they will move it somewhere else. If you imagine you just plastered your hand in, you know, in black paint, and then just spent the day walking around the house, and then said to your kids, "Show me your hands." I guarantee they'd have black hands. Right. And that's exactly the same thing. If you can wash your hands, keep them clean. They say, you know, for 20 seconds, if you can sing the song "Happy Birthday" in your head while you're washing your hands, you've washed your hands for long enough. And you should be watching your.
I have a 2-year-old daughter here, can sing many songs into, you know, more than "Happy Birthday," yeah. Baby Shark, and so and so and so. Wow, well, okay, that's interesting. How do you see the changes from now on? I mean, are we going to allow to sit on a plane? Because people are complaining about the aircraft being, oh, you're in a confined space, you're breathing the same air. But if you search a little bit there, you will see that every 3 minutes, the whole aircraft the air gets replaced. They get sucked out and refiltered again and brought back in again. And also they were talking about having people sitting. I'm sitting here, there's a seat missing, nobody here, another seat there. Which I think, how does that work?
It's like traveling business class, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But how's the point of, how do we get in a queue? What does the boarding queue look like? Like 3 miles long?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if this is going to work.
I mean, I don't see how. I mean, if you're in a tube at 30,000 feet, if someone at the front of the plane sneezes, then I don't know how it wouldn't just be dragged through the rest of the aircraft.
Wow. Tim was asking if washing the hands does actually kill it or just remove it. How does that work? What would that? Our great leader, Mr. Trump, said the joke about the disinfectant or whatever, the bleach thing. I know it was a joke. He was just being sarcastic with the reporter there, but people, of course, the media will talk about this for another month. Bleach or any kind of a bleach surface or product will actually kill this thing. What is that?
Yes, I mean, it's a virus, so it's just a pathogen. It will be killed by stuff that kills viruses. You know, if it's on the outside of the body. When you're washing your hands, you're washing any contaminants off of your hands. You're just washing them off. Yeah, effectively the same as cleaning your car with a hose pipe and a sponge. It's just literally cleaning them off.
So another question based on that one. So this thing will stick to your clothing then. I mean, you, Dr. Karina, my brother, Filippo, and all the people that work in a hospital, when you guys go home, what you do? You get naked outside the door, set the clothing on fire, and then you walk in the house, or what's the procedure with that?
So for me, I shower at my ambulance station. I take off all of my uniform.
Right.
And goes into a pillowcase, and then I get changed into clean clothes. I go home and I immediately put my pillowcase full of clothes so that I don't touch them again into the washing machine with a washing tab and an additive that's like a cleaning thing for the washing machine itself. And there and then.
My Filippo just wrote exactly the same thing. You don't leave the uniform there for them to take it away and get some industrial cleaning products. Then you another set of uniform later.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what happens so much. I mean, years ago, hospitals, you used to go in and you literally would put your uniform in, and it would be laundered, and then you'd go and collect your uniform back, and you'd hang it back in your locker. Now everybody's pretty much in scrubs at a hospital. They want to wear something. Don't want to be trying to pull stuff over your face if you're trying to remove it. So if you can, you want everything loose so that it just drops off of you, and then it's industrially laundered. Unfortunately for the ambulance service, we have to do ours at home. So mine has to come back. There is no facilities on station for us to launder our stuff.
Because Tib is asking one very interesting question here. He lives in a block of flats where they have downstairs like washing machines and tumble dryers and stuff like that. So it's a communal area.
Yeah.
So how does that work now? So if you have a paramedic, a doctor, or someone lives in the same building, this guy comes down, check all his things there, wash it, quick wash for sure, takes it upstairs, and then I come after him and do exactly the same thing. Is there any chance of me getting contaminated by any of his stuff?
I mean, yeah, there's got to be a chance. So our uniforms our uniforms are made from a substance which is called microguard, which is built in. So it's designed to be antibacterial it's inbuilt into the material, but they need to be washed at 60 degrees, or you need this, like a additive stuff,
right?
Yeah, that you put in if you're going to wash them at less than that. So if they've been washed at 60 degrees, then basically everything's been washed and removed. So no, it should be fine. The next person that puts their washing in that machine should be fine. It's only if obviously the person's lifted the uniform out of a bag and then touched the handle, the dial, and then there's potential. Same as it would be opening the room to the laundry room if they've got it on their hands. But the actual machine, no, once it's been washed and been fine.
Wow, interesting. Thibaut, you have to wrap yourself in a plastic bag and a bin bag and show up there with big gloves and masks and just to open the door of the washing machine. Wow. Okay. How interesting. So the changes that we're going to have this, they are talking about different levels of opening, if you like it, getting back into the routine or whatever routine we're going to have after this.
Yeah.
To have a class where we can go and train bear hugs again, we might have to take a while for that, isn't it?
It could, yeah.
Restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, they were saying that pubs are going to be one of the last things to open up. They've not really mentioned anything about gyms yet.
No.
And I would imagine if they can, that would be quite high up on the list.
Yeah.
From people's mental health, ability to exercise, etc. So I would imagine that the facilities would be hopefully quite up, but it would be at what point do they decide it's safe enough for you? I mean, you've seen how close the running machines are next to each other. You run shoulder to shoulder with the person on the next treadmill. So
yeah, but in the beginning, before everything got shut down, I was telling everyone in class, I don't believe that anything will close until the underground goes, oh, by the way, the underground is not working anymore. We are shutting, they're pulling the plug. We don't want to take people on the tube up and down anymore. Then I will believe that, okay, things are very serious now. Because if by the way, there's no gathering of people. However, tube is still working. You can have 5,000 people squashed in a couple of carriages there. Then I don't see why. They're not talking about the money of health and safety and things like that. Then we need to talk about it. But
I didn't understand when they decided that they was going to scale down the timetable, but not stop people from travelling. So you got same people getting up to half the amount of trains, which I really didn't. It just meant that he was even more packed than it was when they just run the regular.
Before,
they even needed to say to people, you can't travel. The only people that can travel, we're going to give this little card to, and that's the thing you need to show the man at the ticket box. Otherwise, you're not getting on. So that's for cleaners, this, that, certain people that would be allowed to travel, but they never did.
Question for Buddy: how long does the virus stays in surfaces like clothing, metal? I think I've asked this question before, but
so I think it can live up to 72 hours.
72 hours
on a hard surface.
12, 24 is a full day. Well, 24.
Nearly 3 days ish. It can live, and again, it depends on how warm it is, etc., etc., etc. So good conditions, it can live for up to 3 days on a hard, like plastic, steel, things like that. I believe cardboard was 24 hours. I think it can live on clothing again for about the same sort of time.
Tough little bugger,
Yeah. The thing is, what it can't do, it can't reproduce. So it can only, so if I've got a little bit of it on my finger and I touch something, it will stay at that size. It won't, but it needs to be inside a body. A virus, by moving into a cell and taking over that cell and then breaking out into another cell, and then it multiplies. So without there being a living thing, it can't grow, but it can stay dormant, ready to be picked up for quite some time. Yeah. And the thing we need then is to go anywhere near any what we call mucosa, so anywhere where water come out of the body, so out of your nose, your eyes, your mouth, etc. So anywhere that you have to scratch or rub, immediately you can then introduce the virus into your body. And if you think socially, it's such a common thing to touch your face and be around your face when you're being expressive. It's something that as social animals we do a lot of, that people don't realise. Sometimes wearing the mask is actually just quite handy, just because you feel like, oh, I would have touched my face then if I hadn't have touched the mask.
So I guess Italians have some hard time with dealing with this. There's no kissing and hugging anymore, eh?
Yeah, I mean, even just scratching your nose, that's enough to. You wouldn't think, oh, what I'll do, I'll scratch my nose, but because you've already done it by the time you.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned a few years back, the British Army standardized the fact that when you sneeze on your, the to avoid you sneezing your hands and then starting
exactly,
touching everything. But that would be, I guess, they'll be teaching this to schools from now on, sneezing.
Yeah. But I mean, it's how, if that's a conscious thought to do that. How many times did you have to? I don't sneeze often enough for it to be something that is programmed. Every time I went to sneeze, I would have to consciously think, "Oh, don't use my hand," because my for all my life has been to just.
I watched a video of this experiment they did. The guy sneezing a very slow motion camera from the side, and then the projectile of stuff coming out of his head. It's actually a meter away from the guy's face, and then the other one with the mask just went backwards and upwards a little bit, so it held back quite a lot. So I said, if everybody's wearing the mask, then the chance of this spreading. Fact that it's not coming out of my nose and whatever towards you, but then you have a mask to protect from you breathing that way also. So typically I spoke with someone who worked, and he was still working in a lab. So I showed you about the lab mutated virus, or something to do with this virus being mutating into something else. It's what I was saying earlier. There was about 30 different strains of this thing. Apparently, they realized that. So if this is the case, you're going to be fighting this thing until
imagine
it's a long way ahead of us. Yeah,
it's going to be around for a while. I really don't see how it will pan out. I honestly can't envisage what will change. How we will go back to what it was. I don't know how that will happen. Or how long that may take to happen. And equally, I don't know what the bit in between that will be, from where we are now of nobody's allowed to go out and pretty much, lots and lots of people have got it, to what happens when we start seeing people again. Or are we going to just accept the fact that...
The interesting thing is, in Brazil, for instance, that I have family there, 4,000 people died so far with this. We're talking about 150 million people there, give or take, yeah? So 4,000 people and 150, I mean, let's forget about the human side of it. Let's look at this. It's nothing. It's a little scratch. So what they are doing now is trying to get people back to work, and, make sure you wash your hands, make sure you wear a mask, but get back to work. So would that be different? I mean, in Italy, it was winter time when this thing hit them, still cold. So the virus, I guess, spread it with the cold and the fact that people have lack of vitamins D and things like that. So do you reckon that from country to country, this will be different? Because maybe in China gave them one result or one issue there. Over here, there was a lot of people dying from a certain age. Might be the case in Brazil that just give the people massive headache, but then they're back in business a week after that. So it also might be that case also, that every country, different weather, different factors will contribute to that. Is that right?
Yeah. Different time of year. And if you think about us, everybody speaks about the NHS with its winter pressures, that there's always a shortage of beds, etc. what will happen if this comes back in October, November again, as it is now, when we already, you know, literally every bed. I think London has gone from having 500 intensive care beds to 1,600. I believe.
Wow.
So that's an increase of 900 beds that we found from somewhere. You know, what have we had to do to the other parts of the NHS? I'm quite fortunate that I turn up to somebody, I make a decision about stay at home, go to hospital quickly. And that's pretty much my three choices. Stay at home, I'll tell you know your GP or an alternative health service, you know, Freddie's having a bit of a mental health crisis, whatever. Take you to hospital nice and slowly, or rush you there really quickly.
Okay.
But once I offload my patient, that's then when the sort of Tetris of who goes where, who can we move, who needs a bed. I'm quite fortunate that whatever happens, they have to take my patient off of my stretcher.
Right.
But what equipment, what staff, etc. I'm fortunate that, you know, like Philippa and that have to deal with the.
Oh yeah, they get on the other side, the other end of it. Yeah. Wow.
I'm walking down my stretcher at that point when they're looking at all the names on the wall and deciding can we move that person out of bay 6 and is that person going to need that ventilator for another day because they're going to die anyway? But this person, if we give it to the person who Carl's just dropped off, he might survive because he's not 50 years old, obese, diabetic, etc. So
right. Those
are decisions that I'm so glad I don't have to make.
Wow, phenomenal. What I've seen in the news today, there are hospitals up north of England where everything is empty. The beds are empty. There's no people actually being seen at the hospital because apparently they don't want to go there to get, as you said, they don't want to go to the hospital to get sick.
Yeah. So, it's amazing. It's like Christmas Day in London. If you've ever been to a hospital on Christmas Day, surprisingly, nobody is ill enough unless they are genuinely ill to go to hospital. So the place is absolutely empty. So yeah, people that just for whatever reason decide that actually I'm not quite poorly enough to go to hospital because I'm scared of corona. But if corona wasn't there, they would quite happily sit in the urgent care centre for 9 hours because they can't get a doctor's appointment. Whereas at the minute, they'll just say, you know what, I'm just going to. And there's some people that, in all fairness, probably don't need to go to hospital. They're doing it because they can't get a doctor's appointment and they want their test results now and whatever. And then there's other people that really should be in hospital or should have gone to hospital to be assessed, but they're either too scared or they think there won't be a bed or they don't want to trouble. You know, you go to somebody who's old and they say, well, why haven't you not called before? And they're like, oh, I didn't want to trouble you. And you think,
usually, yeah, very British. I'm dying here, but I'm okay. Yeah, I'm just, sucking up.
I thought I'd be all right. How long have you been like this? Well, I've not had a drink for 4 days because I couldn't get out of bed. And those people are not, and they're not getting the contact that they would do. So people are not going around as much. So they're not seeing them. So by the time we do get a call, that person is critically unwell.
Right.
They might have been good enough to, you know, get a GP appointment and somebody pop round to see them 4 or 5 days ago. But
And in terms of the PPE, the personal protective equipment or personal protection equipment, how do you?
Personal protective equipment.
Protective equipment. Have you seen any shortage of that for you guys, or you show up to work and you have to bring your own yellow gloves that you use to wash the dishes at home, kind of stuff? Or no?
So there is equipment.
Yeah.
But
it's like if you get there early enough.
and it's also so we've been given like a plastic apron like that you would use for finger painting at primary school.
Right. So when you Niagara Falls, when you go there to avoid you getting splashed with drugs. Okay.
So you treat your patient and you've got whatever it is that's obviously the apron's protecting you for, and then you walk outside into the breeze and the apron blows up and it wipes that all over your face.
Oh, bravo.
So they're not fit for out of hospital. If you're in somebody's house, they're fine. But the second that we walk out wheeling you down the stairs, that thing just turns into a flag flapping around.
There's a Monty Python effect towards the end of this, isn't it?
Yeah. So there is definitely, there was. I'm quite lucky. I've not been there for over 2 weeks now because I've been off. So I don't know what the situation is going to be like when I go back. But there was, and not just obviously in the ambulance service, but across the board, a lot of dissatisfaction in the level of PPE that we were being told is adequate. The World Health Organization was saying, you need this, you need that, you need the other. And then Public Health England said, actually, you can just wear this stuff. And then, well, what's that then? And the answer that sort of trickled through is, well, because we haven't got enough otherwise.
Fingers crossed, son, yeah.
Yeah, which isn't very reassuring to be told, it might be all right, but it doesn't matter, because even if it's not, we haven't got anything else anyway. So
that's the hard bit, eh?
Yeah.
So it's like going to war not knowing if the ammunition is going to work when you have to fire.
Yeah.
You have ammunition, but I want to work. Well, that's okay. Continue firing. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, look, we've been chatting. I know we could have gone, longer with that, more than an hour now. I try to keep then an hour because otherwise people are going to get. I mean, even though the subject here we could talk for hours. I have a few more questions here, but I'll take a picture of this question to avoid people telling that I'm a bad whatever I am. I'll take a picture of the question here, and then I'll send it to you, and you can reply on the WhatsApp group there. Okay.
Okay. Cool.
Anything else would you like to say or touch or any advice to anybody?
I've broke out my T-shirt to wear it again for a while.
Yes. That's enough PPE, man. You just show up there, the virus is gonna go. No, don't hit me, don't hit me. Yeah, that's more than enough to protect you. Okay, keep your groin guard. If not on the ground, just put it here. Yeah, PPE.
I'm just about to get my stuff ready for tomorrow.
You're working tomorrow.
4:20 alarm and all.
If you see Joel or my brother in the future, just give them a hug, as you do. Just,
yeah.
I'm sure they're gonna like that. Yeah, and they run a mile when they see you again. But thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time, guys. Also, thanks for joining us there. So let's continue our round of interviews. And next time we're going to be talking to, actually tomorrow, we'll be talking to Shahal, the big Shahal, the one that was in the IDF for 20 years teaching Krav Maga. So he's got a lot of experience. It'll be nice talking to him. So if you have the time tomorrow, we'll send the link on the WhatsApp group so you join us there. Carl, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Welcome back and be safe out there.
Good.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.